Welcome back to the Fit Minute Podcast, Fitness for Real People, with your host, Gabrielle Mazar. On today's episode, Gabrielle interviews Dr. Jeep and Vanessa Naum, co-founders of Best Friends Again Marriage Coaching. They help to teach the steps to successfully communicate, understand each other, and grow in relationships. Their work in the medical field helping physicians and healthcare professionals has been vital over the last couple of years. And now here's your host, personal trainer and stretch therapist, Gabrielle Mazar.
Welcome back to the Fit Minute Podcast, Fitness for Real People. I'm your host, Gabby Mazar, and on today's episode, I have Dr. Jeep and Vanessa Naum, the co-founders of Best Friends Again Marriage Coaching. Welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, and just really anxious to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you guys on because we're going to talk specifically about marriages today. And I know we've seen a lot of effects of what has been going on in the last couple years. But we're going to touch on some different things, especially in the medical field, particularly because there's some insight there that we would like to talk about. But yeah, so give us a little bit of insight as to who you are, what you do, and how you got into the field of coaching.
Sure. Well, I was born into a physician marriage almost 63 years ago. And so I knew two things when I was young. One, I wanted to be a physician. And the second is I wanted to be married. My dad was a phenomenal physician, but had a very dysfunctional marriage with my mother. Lots of narcissistic behavior, lots of disrespect, and everything that went along with that. Verbal abuse, emotional abuse, occasionally physical abuse. And so I'm watching all of this from as young as when I was aware. And, and my thoughts were, this really doesn't have to be this way. And I really wasn't in a place where I could call him on this until I was older, which I did. So it was my intent when I was able to, that I was going to make a difference in marriages, and and to keep them from getting into spots like my parents did in nerves. And so I'll let Vanessa take it from here because it kind of dovetails with us getting together.
So before I met Jeep, I was in a marriage that clearly was not working. I grew up in a very traditional Italian family, very loud. The men ruled the roost, and what they said went. And I felt that I didn't have a voice. I had to go with the flow. So I learned to go with the flow, thinking that daydreaming about what did I want for my, what type of relationship did I want with my future husband? Unfortunately, I didn't know enough at the time. I was 21 when I got married, and it clearly was not working. There was alcohol involved, and I, after trying to lead that horse to water, and he would not drink, I moved on. And so I got divorced, I relocated, fast forward, met Jeep, and then, I had some hard knocks going through that time with my ex. We were with each other for 9 years. And so I clearly knew by then what I wanted and what I didn't want in a relationship. But predominantly what I learned was that if the other person is willing to work and has that attitude of being a team, that mindset is huge. And I found him, and I say he checked off all my boxes. And that's not to say we didn't have, landmines along the way, because we have, but we learned tools early on predominantly because he was willing to work, and we learned tools to get through the rough times.
And so she was of a like mind with me about wanting to help other couples. And so we got married in 1992. 2 years later, we got trained and have been coaching since then. And it's been a labor of love to help the couples that we've been able to help over the years.
And a huge thing is communication, just teaching healthy communication. And I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, yeah, absolutely. I think that's very, very true. I think a lot of people go into relationships, especially at 21 or at a very young age, with the idea that you have this fairy tale that marriage is going to be great and wonderful and you've met your Prince Charming and everything is perfect. But you are two individuals that were raised by two different families with different beliefs, with different traditions, with different value systems, just completely different altogether. And now you're trying to mesh those two things together. And you can't make that work unless you have communication and unless both partners are willing to work. If one person is willing to work and the other one is not, it is not going to work. Period. End of story. Because if one person is not willing to change and grow, it's the end of a relationship, because the other person cannot continue to work to make a relationship work if you're repeating the same processes over and over and over again. So I think it's very true that communication is key, and we don't learn to communicate as partners because we all communicate differently as well, and we've learned to communicate differently from our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents. And we've passed that down generation to generation without learning how to do that in our own current relationship. Definitely.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. And, fear gets in the way. We're human. And so when somebody starts tripping on setting us off, hitting our triggers, whatever, if we don't step out in courage and explain to them why that is happening, but then just yell, then what that's doing is putting the other person on the defensive. And once you put the other person on the defensive with either your words or your body language or whatever, you are now in battle.
Yeah.
And you put it so well. And how I would dovetail that is to say that a lot of what you said, unfortunately, is not talked about before.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So there's superficial kind of things that are talked about. And if you broach a subject that causes conflict between the two of you, causes discomfort, what ends up happening is that you tend to avoid it. And then you come to this unfortunate conclusion that, well, it'll get better after we get married. And so you're making these statements in the middle of the honeymoon phase, where you're physically attracted and your hormones are going nuts for each other. So you're not really thinking about the future. Fast forward, you get married. The honeymoon phase is still there, but then it starts to wane, and then real life hits you in the face. And this problem that you thought was going to get better by having it wait, not only is still there, but it's
worse.
It's much worse. And that's, we
did it. We did it. We fell into that.
Yeah.
We coached engaged couples in just, it's so rewarding to be able to at least try to prevent them from making that mistake, especially if it's something that's a potential deal breaker that you've ignored before.
Like kids or religion or money.
Yes.
Where you want to live.
Yes, all the above. And in our case, it was children. I wanted one. He wanted more. I thought after we had the first one, and he saw how difficult it was for me to go through the pregnancy, how I had fears that I wasn't going to be a good mother, so on and so forth. I thought that I could rationalize with him. I also have a chronic illness, and I thought I'm not going to be able to handle more than one. And wow, totally took us to the wall. I mean, and that was a bone of contention between us for lots of months, probably a couple of years.
And that's what we did. See, it was uncomfortable.
Right.
When we would talk about it before marriage, Vanessa would cry and I would feel bad. And so we just pushed it down the line. And we had so many other things that we had going for us, similarities that we thought, we can
figure it out.
But no, it was, she wanted to have one. We've ended up having three. And the reason,
how about that?
Well,
the reason is
compromise.
She moved. She was the one who moved, and I was unfortunately carrying on a trait that I never wanted to exhibit, which my father had, and that was like, well, this is what I want. This is the way it should be. And yes, what you say, it makes sense, but I still want it to be this way. And so I persisted.
You said that perfectly.
Well, I called myself out on it because it was a wrong way for me to have approached that situation. And I give all the credit to Vanessa because she was able to move like she did. Now, we've had other things where I've had to move, and this was an example where she really went out of her way to make me happy. And
well, I think that also in relationships, what people don't understand is that even though you may have things that are deal breakers, those things can definitely change. And it's not necessarily compromise. I know I said compromise, but sometimes it's not compromise. Sometimes you are compromising your beliefs to appease the other person, and vice versa. There are two people in a relationship, and one of you may get your way, the other one may not, but sometimes you have to give a little as well. So it's not about being stubborn in your beliefs and always having it your way. But you realize, you've realized that she made that compromise for you, not a compromise together. It was a compromise of her belief in what she wanted for you. And I'm sure you don't regret having more children at all, but I don't know that, but it's very much a give and take. I've heard in the past that people talk about relationships are not 50-50. Sometimes they're 50-50, sometimes they're 70-30, sometimes they're 80-20. And it should go like this, because whatever you're doing in a relationship, sometimes somebody needs a little more. A little more help, a little more love, a little more nurturing. If you have a death in the family, or lost a job, or you're moving, or you have kids, things change, and relationships are very dynamic. So to think that it's 50-50, or to think that one person is the boss and the other person is not, like, those things are very kind of old school mentality and shouldn't be thought of. You have to think of relationships as constantly evolving and changing.
Yes. And we say, if you're not growing together and changing together, then you're growing apart. And what we do is teach you how to get back on that road and practice tools that are going to keep you on that road. And so when something comes up in the road in the future, a detour, whatever life throws at you, that you now have practiced these tools and can communicate with each other moving forward.
And what you said, again, I mean, very prescient, very, very well said. Yeah. I put it slightly differently. I say, you need to give 100% of yourself to your relationship. Now, some days 30% may be your 100%. That's because that's all you can give. And your partner is given 70%. As Vanessa has said that she has a chronic illness, and there's been many times over the years where she's been on the couch in pain, fatigued, and so she's given 20 or 30, but that's all she can give that
Yeah.
day. So
Yeah.
I'm picking up the slack. And you do that for each other if you're committed
Right.
to each other and to the work that you need to put in to make your relationship a success.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys actually specialize with helping physicians and healthcare workers with marriage coaching. Can you tell me a little bit about maybe what you've seen personally over the last couple years and how things have changed just with the landscape of how everything has gone and relationships as far as in the healthcare industry?
Well, the huge difference is, and speaking to this as a physician, there was a time when you could go in and you could somewhat predict what your day was going to be like. Well, COVID starts, you go in, and to put it mildly, you don't know what's going to be coming at you that day. Are you going to have enough staff? Which is huge. The requests that are made of you by insurance companies, executives, administration, changes from day to day to day. So what you think that's going to be requested one day can be double the next day. You walk in and you think, okay, well, I'm going to be here maybe 8-9 hours. Well, some days, because of this, you're going to be there for 12, 13, 14. And so that gets very frustrating. You may have an issue with a patient. They're upset about a drug that you prescribed isn't being paid for, so that you have to fight to get that done for them. So these have just doubled as far as their importance and the weight of stress that it's caused. So
what we're finding is that docs are literally having to put on Superman outfits in the morning, walk into their place of employment, and they have to be superhuman all day long, because the process of developing students into doctors is very, very grueling. So you build muscles up along the way. And unfortunately, the muscles you build are keep everything inside, don't talk about it, because I can't admit that I'm a human being and I may be struggling here. I just have to keep doing what I'm doing day in and day out, which is one of the huge reasons that leads to burnout. But getting back to the Superman story, we're finding that coming back home, they have lost the ability to shed that armor, relax, and get into relationship with their spouse.
As I would say, to put it a slightly different way, is they're having trouble disconnecting from work and reconnecting
at home. Absolutely.
And using myself as an example, early on in our marriage, starting a practice, Vanessa was running the practice, and we had a child at that time. And so she not only was managing the practice, but she would leave at 4:00. She would go pick up our daughter, and then she would get home, and her second job started. So there's me. I'm at the office. A lot of times I'm not getting out till 6 or 7 o'clock, and then I've got to go to hospitals, which at that time were several. And so sometimes I'm not getting home till 9, 10 o'clock, and you have a child there. I walk through the door and I'm numb. I'm just looking to decompress. So I walk through the door, sit in my chair, and just completely veg out watching TV.
And I'm looking for my partner to come and rescue me, because I am just like, I need help.
Yeah.
She's behind me, and our daughter's pawing at her. She's trying to get dinner ready. She's trying to entertain her, and I'm just oblivious to what's going on. And So after a while, Vanessa was like, one, we decided to have kids, and we said, well, this was going to be a team effort, and
Mhm.
there's no I in team, and you're definitely not being a team player. And she had to convince me of that for a while, and finally it hit. Again, it's one of those traits that somehow you grow up with that you don't want to have, but when you're aware of it, then you do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that happened. And do you want to say something?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was another one that took some time to finally, get him to understand that I need help too, and we are a team sport here, and just because you're a doctor, that doesn't mean that your job is more important than mine. And see how we were in that battle mode. It was me against him. So what we do is we coach get out of battle mode and start discussing why you need the help, how you feel about not getting the help, how you feel like you're definitely not connecting with your spouse. And when you're not connecting with your spouse on day-to-day things, you're really not connecting intimately either.
Right.
So it affects all aspects of the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just, now talking about as affecting all aspects of the relationship, you've then affected your health, not just mentally, but you're affecting your physical health. So, you've got stress, you've got anxiety. We talked about hypertension, and those things, affect the relationship. Inside the relationship, affect you personally. And then on top of that, now you are eating worse, probably not getting
And I was.
exercise,
Yes.
not doing things to take care of your health altogether because you aren't in a place because your relationship is out of whack.
Yep. I was exactly like that.
Yeah, you're doing all the things to try and make your relationship survive, but in the meantime, you're actually causing more harm than
Exactly. You're
That's right.
escaping.
Yes.
And instead of doing things that are healthy, like taking a walk or doing exercise to burn off that stress, you escape into eating food that's not good, or possibly
Drinking.
drinking more, or being being a couch potato and doing nothing but sitting there watching TV. And as you sit there, sometimes you ruminate, and instead of voicing things, you keep it to yourself. The rumination gets worse. Then you start to go down a rabbit hole, and then that makes things worse. And it's a cycle that just keeps
Vicious
repeating
cycle.
itself.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So with your coaching, you help to coach couples. Do what exactly? What exactly is it entailed in your coaching?
Well, we have a program that we've developed, and it has 3 parts to it. It's done over 90 days, so 3 months, and it's called 90 Days from Clarity to Connection. And so the first month we work on clarity, and we get back to what do you want and what do you need in this relationship? Why did you get into the relationship to begin with? What made you fall in love with each other? Back when you were in the limerence stage of your relationship and you thought that you would never get to the point that you're in now, what type of thoughts did you have? What kind of mindset did you have at that time? So we get very, very clear on what the couples want, and then moving forward, what they would like to build together as a couple instead of 2 independent people. Then the next step of it is working with challenges, like just life challenges. So that would be job, family, money, children, that type of stuff. So we spend some time digging into that. And then the last month is with sexuality. So it's with connection. So we're going to work on sexuality, sexual empowerment, and commitment.
And it's specifically built that way because you have to, and believe it or not, you have to have that foundation with which a lot of couples just do not have. A question like, okay, what have you ever thought about what you've wanted in your relationship? Have you ever had a vision of where you would like to go as a couple, or where you see yourselves in 5 years, 10 years? When your kids are out of the house, what do you see about that? But the most important things were the first top couple that I mentioned. And couples will say, well, we just kind of got along and we really never thought about what each other wanted or needed. And you would think that that's two of the most basic things that you talk about before you get married. But unfortunately, it's not. And that's where premarital education or coaching, it's pretty much non-existent.
Oh,
And
definitely.
because it's not, that's why unfortunately you see a lot of this and
a lot of divorce.
Definitely.
Yes, a ton. And so something that should have been done during engagement at the very least is now something that you're dealing with when you're married. But that's okay. We give them that before we can move them forward.
I think a lot of what I have seen in my marriage years, not me being married, but friends who've gotten married and divorced, is a lot of it was you get in a relationship young and you're just kind of going through the motions because it's just what you do. We get along, we like each other, things work, so why not? Now we've been together for a few years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. So we get married. Then you get married, you have a kid, and you realize you really don't even like that person. You don't have anything in common. You don't get along at all. Why were you even, you got married because it's just what you're supposed to do.
Exactly.
You know, we were in a relationship. It was working, so we got married. Not because you were in love with this person and you wanted to build a future with this person and you could see yourself, you know, sitting on a porch in rocking chairs someday, or retiring in Florida, or traveling the world. I mean, there are people that really don't talk about any of those things, that don't talk about kids, that don't talk about money, that don't talk about future, that don't talk about jobs. They don't talk about any of those things. And I've even seen couples that have been married and within a matter of months divorce because they realized they had two completely different plans about kids. One person wanted the kids and be a stay-at-home mom. The other person was like, I don't want any of that. I don't want kids, and I don't want to be taking care of somebody. Or, you know, you get married and have a kid and realize that the other person is not even available to be a father and wasn't even there to begin with, and you're seeing traits in this person that you never noticed before because they weren't brought out, because they had no reason to be. So now you have another being that you're taking care of and you're going, oh, what is this? What is this thing that you're doing? So, I mean, I've seen a lot of it, and it's interesting and it's sad at the same time, because you don't want to see relationships or marriages break up, and you do want to see people work together. But I think the issue starts in before you're there, and also after the fact, that people don't want to admit. I wouldn't even say admit, it's not admit, but they feel like they are admitting something is wrong, or they have done something wrong. So coaching is admitting that you have done something wrong or are not good, which is not the case.
It's absolutely not. You're right.
It is that you are learning to communicate and to grow in a relationship with someone that is different than you.
Yep. Exactly right.
So well said. So well said. And unfortunately, like you said, people get married because it's like a progression. Okay, you've been going together for a while. So what's next? Oh, we
Get
get
married.
married. Okay, and that's just something that you're supposed to do because you've been together for a while. But while you've been together, you've not been concentrating on what you really need to do before you put those rings on.
Right.
And it's like you said, it's just so unfortunate. But in getting couples that come, they have waited for a while, and something has clicked, and they say, okay, let's do this. And to a couple, they've said, geez, I wish we wouldn't have waited so long.
Right.
But as long as there's that, that there's something there, and that you do care about each other, you care about your relationship, but you just don't know how to
You
get
don't
it
have the
where
tools.
exactly.
Yep. You don't have the tools.
And you don't know how to either correct or to move on from these issues that you're having right now. And it's, and that's why we do what we do, because I've seen so many of them like you, Vanessa has, we both have. And it's just, I mean, it's just so important to do something about it.
Yeah.
And that's, we wanted to be a change for the better.
Especially if you love the person. If you love that person and you want to make it work and it's not working, you have to put in the work. A relationship is work, no matter what anybody says or feels. A relationship is work. It takes work to spend time with that person, to be present with that person, to want to love that person or be intimate with that person. It is a job. It's a job just like any other. And if you neglect your job, you get fired.
Absolutely. And you know what else I liken it to is if you're raising children and you're giving a lot of your time and your energy to your child. Well, your spouse needs the same type of energy. And if you gave your children the type of time and energy you gave your spouse, that would be called neglect. So the important thing is, you're right, spending the time together.
And couples kind of get into this false sense of security.
Thinking,
oh, when things are good, we don't have to communicate. And something that may be under the surface that really should be talked about, kind of, oh, it's not a big deal. Well, maybe if you'd have talked about it when it wasn't a big deal, it would mushroom into a big deal.
Right.
And so that's another thing. We tell, even when everything is, quote, okay, it doesn't mean that you still don't need to talk. You still don't need to take stock of where you're at and where you want to go. And it's a huge problem that they don't do. But when you get them to start doing that, it's just everything to them. And you saying about kids, I'll make it quick. We have always put our relationship first, and our kids have always known that. We would go on vacation and kids would come and they'd say, well, can we go with you, mommy and daddy? And we'd say, we're going to take you on vacation as a family, but this is for mommy and daddy. We need to go away and be together by ourselves. And the reason we're doing that is so when we get back, we can be better for you, and we can be good parents for you.
Yeah.
And you don't have to just say this once, because they're going to continue to ask every time you go away. But the more you repeat that, and then they see the results of you being away and having time to yourselves and how it rejuvenates your relationships, they get that. And to think that kids don't get what's going on, that they can't figure things out, that is such a bad mistake to make.
Yeah. Absolutely. It really is. And children can see in a relationship, they can see how you react with each other, and then that is perpetuated in them. They repeat that behavior to their future spouse.
Yep.
So how you interact with your partner to your kids is going to be how they do to theirs. That's what they've seen. It's what they've known their entire lives. So
That's right.
And that goes for any sort of healthy habits, any sort of habits, period, whatever they, good or bad, whether they're learning, to eat junk food every day, or they're learning to have good mental health practice and be yogis, it's perpetuating that behavior, and you want your kids to have the best opportunity to have the best life mentally, physically, emotionally, and in their relationships forever.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So your website is?
Our website is bestfriendsagain.com.
Okay. And if anybody wants to find more information, they can find it there.
Vanessa came up with that. I have to give her credit, because really, when you're in a relationship, especially a committed one, that it is important that you're each other's best friend.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My partner is my best friend, and sometimes I don't like him, but I always love him.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It's so important.
And he knows that.
You don't want to hear somebody say, "Oh, my best friend is my girlfriend who I went to high school with, or the guy who I go on golf trips with." No, what comes out of your mouth should be, my partner, my wife, my spouse. They're my best friends.
Yeah.
People don't really think like that, but
yeah, they're the person you share your most intimate details with about everything in life. That should be your best friend, for sure.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners today?
Jeep has a book. It's called What's Forever For?
A Physician's Guide to Everlasting Love and Success in Marriage.
Awesome. And that can be found on your website also?
On the website and
Amazon.
On Amazon. And
Okay.
it won 2 awards. The book, I wrote it as if I was sitting talking to a patient of mine, basically, in a way that they could understand, no matter your socioeconomic background or your level of education. This is a book that you can read and take something away, and it's understandable. That's the way I wanted it to be, and the feedback that I've gotten from those who have read my book have said that it certainly reached that objective.
Great. All right. Well, I will have all of that information posted in the show notes, so they can find your website and your book as well on your website or Amazon. And thank you guys so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, really. It was really a
Pleasure.
joy.
You're very,
Thank
very
you so
welcome.
much.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening today, and we will see you all next week.
Thank you so much for listening to the Fit Minute Podcast, Fitness for Real People, with your host, Gabrielle Mazar. If you would like more information on today's episode, you can find it in the show notes and on Gabrielle's website at www.destinationfitcations.com. Visit to keep an eye out for upcoming Fitcations. Be sure to share the show, give this podcast a review, and subscribe so you won't miss an episode. Join us next week to hear more stories from people just like you. This has been the Fit Minute Podcast, Fitness for Real People, with Gabrielle Mazar.